Good evening. Welcome to Gita Wisdom with Lakshmi. This Tuesday, August 5th. It is my son's birthday today. We had a nice celebration. So, in honor of my son, in celebration of his 11th birthday, we speak Bhagavad Gita. Thank you for giving me your association today. So, everyone, I hope, is surviving the heat and enjoying themselves. I thank you for this is birthday cake. Okay, I'll have to clean it up later. So we're doing the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Very wonderful chapter. Actually, each chapter has its own special flavor. Krishna is giving us his special mercy, and we're talking about karma yoga. Karma yoga is very interesting. I noticed in my travels through different yoga studios, some of them have karma yoga that they do, but the Gita gives a definitive understanding of what karma yoga is. It's more than just doing things for others, as we'll see as we get into the nitty-gritty of what is karma yoga. So let us begin with the third chapter. Where we left off last time was text 20. So I'll read text 20 again to bring us back into the starting point of today's reading. We'll try to do from 20 to 30 today. This is the Sanskrit. In order to get the mood of Bhagavad Gita, it is important to read some Sanskrit and absorb, let the sound vibration of Sanskrit absorb into our brain. Text 20 in the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita reads as follows. Karma naiva hi samsiddhim ashtita janaka daya loka sangraham evapi sampasyan kartum arhasi. And the translation reads as follows. Kings such as Janaka attain perfection solely by performance of prescribed duties. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work. This is a nice verse on many different levels. Notice what Krishna is saying here. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work. So it's giving us an understanding, an indication that we have responsibility to humanity. Our responsibility to humanity is to act properly with the right mindset and the right intention. Because, as you'll see in the next verse, Krishna describes one of my favorite verses, especially given political leadership in the various countries today. I think this is a very poignant verse. Yad yad acharati shreshtas tatat evetaro janaha sayat pramanam kurute lokas tad anuvartate. Now listen to this. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow. And whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. That is one of the potencies a great person will have, a powerful person. In the previous verse, Krishna is saying Janaka, King Janaka, who is a very powerful, very God-conscious king. It describes that he attained perfection in life by performing his duty. See, Krishna is making this statement to Arjuna because in the beginning, in the first chapter, Arjuna is on the precipice of rejecting his duty and thinking that's right. his duty as a Kshatriya, his duty as a warrior, his duty as a protector of the innocent. All of these things are his duty that he must perform. Dharma or duty is essential for the human being to execute not just dharma, proper or responsible behavior, but dharma with a goal of moksha or liberation or becoming free from the entanglements of this material world. So Krishna is being very, very specific here that we must do our duty. We must act. And here's the whole thing about action. When we talk about action in the Bhagavad Gita, it's not just meaning doing or being busy, your action, but it also indicates proper action. So we can say more specifically, when Krishna talks about karma in the Bhagavad Gita, he's not just talking about action, but he's talking about proper action or dharmic action, action that is responsible in one's behavior, action that is tied in to one's varna or one's responsibility as a administrator, king, as a teacher, mercantilistic person, or just one who serves the rest of humanity. We all have our duties. So action, when Krishna talks about action, it means proper action, action which has the intention of connection. And that's what makes karma yoga important. And that is what is the significance of when we link the word yoga to karma, because karma can mean literally action that has a reaction. Every action, there's a reaction. Karma can mean that. Then there's karma kanda. And karma kanda means that, according to civilized culture, civilized nature, we act according to rules and regulations, which kind of guide us to behave properly. That's karma kanda. But in karma kanda, the action, we're seeking enjoyment. Even though we're following rules and regulations, those following of the rules and regulations is to give us pleasure, our own gratification. So karma generally means action, reaction. And karma, action, reaction, has three divisions. Karma, which means basically good action. Vikarma, which basically means bad action. And when I use the word bad or even the word sinful, it means it's not so much in the Judeo-Christian context, but it's in the context of not following God's law. That's what it means. You choose not to follow God's law. So then that can be determined as a bad action with a bad reaction to it. So karma, action, reaction, and the various types of good action, reaction, bad reaction. Or the third division of karma would be akarma. And akarma means action that is wholly and solely dedicated for the pleasure of the Supreme. And the very, very significant distinction of karma and vikarma, action, reaction, that means you are bound to this material world to suffer or enjoy the results of your good action or your bad action. That's why, people have lots of illness or financial distress, or, they may not be so good looking, or they may not have access to knowledge. They're denied due to circumstance dictated by their karma not to have access to knowledge. Whereas good karma will mean, in general, healthy, in general, good looks, knowledge. All these things are pious reactions. Akarma is different. Akarma actually is another way to say spiritual activities or activities that are connected to the Supreme Lord. And when we perform actions connected to the Supreme Lord, then there's no reaction to it. And that's wonderful. Because if we perform a sadhana, means a practice which involves chanting, involves seeking out association of saintly personalities. So it's chanting, seeking out association, swadhyaya. The other day, I did a class on swadhyaya, and swadhyaya basically means the study of sacred texts and or self-study. It means to take account of what you do and how you do it. Self-study, taking more or less an inventory of what you're doing with your life, to be that aware of what's going on in your life. You take account. If you don't do things what you want to do in the course of the day, you're lazy, or you may be off the beaten path of your sadhana, whatever. You take account of that. So chanting, association, swadhyaya, study of sacred texts, or self-study. These are how we can connect our actions to the Supreme. Another thing would be going to sacred places, because sacred places are infused with spiritual energy because of the presence of holy people in those sacred places. We're just not going as tourists, sightseers. We're going to see a river, or we're going to see a mountain, or we're going to see a temple. But actually, one of the principles about going to a sacred place is to seek out the very holy people who reside there and take their association. And then finally, to do some ritual in relationship to the Supreme. For instance, what's a very common action that we will do? Cook. That's a very common action. Why? Because we need to live, and we need to eat. But the action of cooking with the intention of offering what we are cooking to the Supreme Lord, that action becomes akarmic, no reaction, as opposed to if you're cooking because you really like pasta and you want pasta today. And, you're cooking the pasta and you're tasting the sauce, and, you're just like meditating on how good this is going to taste. That's one mindset and one intention. And that's karmic. In other words, there's reaction to that. But the akarmic approach to that would be the mindset of gratitude that the earth, the rain, the sunshine, the wind, the seeds, all of these things are God's gift to the world, to humanity and the world. All of the things that we subsist on are due to the mercy of God. With that mindset, then our intention when we're preparing our meals is an intention of a mindset of gratitude, thanking the Supreme Lord for all that he's given us. So that very action of preparing and the action of eating, that foodstuffs, which has the consciousness of gratitude in the mood of an offering, then that is the distinction. You see, if you look at a person who we may say is a materialist, or their life is totally self-interest and they are the center of their universe. If we look at a person like that, and we look at a person who is spiritually absorbed in a lifestyle to a lifestyle of offering, a lifestyle of gratitude, a lifestyle of worship, a lifestyle of absorption and meditation on the Supreme. The action may appear to be the same, but the mindset and intention is entirely different. So that is the distinction between karmic action, karma action, which has a good reaction, and akarmic action, which has no reaction. Because good action or good reaction, bad reaction ties us to this world. It's what keeps us in the cycle, the samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth again. It keeps us here in this world, and it keeps us on that treadmill, like the hamster that keeps running the circle there. It keeps us like that proverbial hamster. We keep running in this material world, in this material body, and we keep racking up the good karma, the bad karma, and thus coming back and having to experience it. So a karma means we still act, because as long as we're alive, as long as we're in this body, and even if we're not in this body, excuse me, and even if we're not in this body, then we go into another body, we still have to, we're active. We're always active. And as long as we exist, and exist we do eternally, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, we are eternal in our existence. Natvevam jatunasham natvang name janadipa. Never was there a time when I do not cease to exist, nor you, Arjuna, nor all these kings, or in the future shall we ever cease to be. So that kind of existence, as long as we are in existence, one of two things are going to happen. We perform karmic action, right? Bad or good, which causes us to enter into this world, this material world, or we come to the point of realization and understanding that we are not of this material world. We are deluded by the external energy of the Lord, and that's called illusion. We're deluded by illusion into thinking we are these bodies and this is our place of enjoyment, et cetera, et cetera. We think like that. As long as we maintain that kind of mentality, then we have to come back again and again. And that just means enjoyment, suffering, suffering, enjoyment, enjoyment, suffering, suffering, suffering. Suffering kind of outweighs the enjoyment end of it. But we want to be, to understand, to come to a point of awareness where we can design our lifestyle. In Ayurveda, for instance, if you ever go to see an Ayurvedic doctor, the Ayurvedic doctor will have a couple of things in mind. What is your diet? And what is your lifestyle? In the medical history that they'll do on you, those are two primary concerns. So lifestyle is really, really an important component. So we have to, be aware of our lifestyle, be aware of how we're acting and what kinds of reactions, and ultimately come to the level of consciousness where we can say, I don't want to be in this material world anymore. I don't want to suffer the miseries, the threefold miseries of this world, which come from adhyatmika, which means comes from the mind or body, adhibhautika, which means comes from other living entities, and adhidaivika, which comes from the devas, or the nature, material nature around us, hurricanes and other kind tornadoes and et cetera, all the different types of natural disasters that can happen to us. So it's to bring ourselves to the point of understanding the nature of action and the result of how we are acting. I in my study of humanity and human beings, people that I've known all my life, or people I recently meet, or people that are on the deathbed, or in any and every one of the circumstances. I just saw a very touching photo, and it gave me some realizations. Many of you probably know Paul McCartney, right, of the Beatles. And it was Paul McCartney and Phil Collins. And Phil Collins originally was of Genesis, and then eventually went out on his own. He became, a superstar in his own right. Well, Phil Collins is on his deathbed, and he's got that look, the deathbed look. And there was a photo. What happened when because Paul McCartney and Phil Collins had a very good friendship relationship. Uh, Paul McCartney, hearing that Phil Collins was coming to the end of his life, he went there and he sang for him. I didn't see the video. Apparently, there is a video of it, but I didn't see the video. But I saw the photograph of after Paul McCartney sang. What did he say? I think he sang "Hey Jude." I think that's the song that he sang. What the relevance of that song, I don't know, but yeah, I think that was it. And they were embracing at the end of the song, and Phil Collins had a tear in his eye, and he was coming to the end of his life, and he was appreciating the friendship that Paul McCartney gave him throughout the course of his musical career, and the very fact that he's coming to see him off on his journey. So it's a very profound experience when you begin to realize how you've behaved in this world. I mean, the fortunate ones realize that before they're at the position of Phil Collins. Now, I can't speak as to whether Phil Collins was a deeply spiritual person or not. I've never heard anything to that regard. I've always heard he's a nice person, but whether he was a deeply spiritual person. But you can see on the look of a person who's about to depart, who hasn't utilized their life with that as an emphasis to understand my purpose in being here in this world. At the time of death, it's a very bewildering experience, isn't it? I mean, because we get up every day. It becomes our routine. It becomes our habit. And we get up every day and we do the same thing, whatever your routine may be. You may get up and you may do your sadhana. You may get up and drink your coffee, whatever your routine actually is. And it becomes just that, a routine, something to have, a habit. And if we do not use our habit, if we do not create the habit of utilizing as much of the time as we possibly can in self-discovery and God discovery, then at the time of death, I don't care who you are and what you've done. I don't care how many gold records you have on your wall, or how many accolades you've received in your life, or how strong a person you are, or how big a politician you are, etc. At that time of death, there's nothing in this material world that can save you from the reactions of your actions during the course of your life. The only thing that can save you is the mercy of the Supreme. And the only way we can achieve the mercy of the Supreme is we have to endeavor, we have to demonstrate, we have to open our heart to it as a priority. We have to as I said, take inventory of our actions on a regular basis. And really, that's sadhana. Sadhana is a calculated inventory of the utilization of my time, which is specific, which is geared towards honoring the Supreme. That's what sadhana is. Some activity, worship, meditation that's done regularly over a long period of time. That's sadhana, with a specific goal in mind to connect or reconnect with our loving relationship with the Supreme. That's the point that we have to come to. And that will lead us on our path towards an eternal loving relationship with God. Bhakti yoga is the yoga that we follow. Bhakti yoga is the yoga system Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita is the topmost yoga system. Krishna talks about Sankhya yoga. Krishna talks about karma yoga. Krishna talks about dhyana yoga. Krishna talks about jnana yoga. Krishna talks about buddhi yoga. Krishna talks about bhakti yoga. And when Arjuna asks that very pointed question, is there any one of these systems that is the best? And Krishna answers that very definitively. Yoginam api sarvesham madgate antaratmana. And that means yoginam api sarvesham, of all the yoga systems, the yoga system that is the topmost yoga system, the most complete yoga system is bhakti. Why is it more complete? Because only in the bhakti yoga system do you get an understanding of the different ways that God can manifest in this world, the different ways and the different paths that can lead you to one of the ways that God manifests himself. For instance, Brahman. Brahman is imperishable, immutable existence, the spiritual energy which causes the existence of everything. And to achieve an awareness of that and your connection to that, you have to perform jnana yoga, which is the yoga of knowledge, which involves swadhyaya, intense swadhyaya or study of the sacred texts, particularly of the Upanishads, and meditation and renunciation. And it will lead you onto a path that will connect you to that aspect of the Supreme, that aspect of the Supreme. And Patanjali, in his Yoga Sutras and his meditation, the system of meditation, both the Ashtanga yoga system and the Kriya yoga system that Patanjali talks about in Yoga Sutras, it leads us to understand the presence of Ishvara in our heart, Ishvara Pranidhana, the supreme controller within our heart in the form of Supersoul. And then Bhakti leads us into a personal relationship with that divine, loving personality known as Krishna. Leads us to that relationship. So why does Krishna say Yoginam api sarvesham? It's the topmost. He says it because through the Bhakti Yoga system, you can realize all the manifestations, whether it be the Brahman manifestation, the Paramatma manifestation, the universal form manifestation, the material energy manifestation, all aspects of Krishna's manifestation, all the various energies and energetic forms by which he comes to us in this world. Bhakti will put it all in order and have us understand that. Jnana Yoga denies the existence of a personal God. So if you deny the existence of a personal God, then you cannot realize the divine loving personality of Godhead, nor can you understand the Paramatma, the presence of God in your heart. All of those are negated in the Jnana Yoga system. And the only absolute truth, the only truth that exists and remains is Brahman. So that's why Prabhupada, many times when he speaks about impersonalism or Brahman realization, he says it's limited, poor fund of knowledge, which means incomplete knowledge. And the same thing with the Yoga Sutras and Patanjali's meditation. There is no emphasis on personality, divine, loving exchange and personality. The emphasis is on the Atma, the self, and the Paramatma, the supreme self. That is it. That becomes your object of meditation, not God the lover, the supreme divine person, or the energy, Brahman energy. No. So that also is incomplete. It is in the Bhakti Yoga system, we can realize the supreme in his totality. And Prabhupada uses the wonderful, and this is actually one of the first analogies that I heard, which really, I remember it. I was like one of the first times I was at a temple and I heard the analogy that it's like the sun. The sun emanates sunshine or energy. And that energy is all pervasive, right? All throughout the universe. And then the sun is an orb which emanates that energy. And then, according to the Vedic literatures, the sun has a personality, Surya, which is the personality behind that sun. So the sunshine, the sun orb, and the sun personality are there. And to understand that sun in its completion is an understanding, a complete understanding of the sun. So to understand the personality of Godhead by which one can engage in a divine loving relationship, the Paramatma, the super soul, that God's mercy, he appears in the heart of all living entities, and that all-pervasive, imperishable, immutable energy, Brahman, that's a complete understanding of Godhead when we use the term Godhead. And that, and in the system of Bhakti Yoga, is what we realize. So this is the kind of awareness level that we have to come to the point to develop. And taking inventory and control of our lives, is tantamount importance, so that we can come to the platform of acting, but acting to please the Supreme. Now, this is very important because action will always be there. So let's progress a little bit more on this line. How do we act? And this is where Krishna, this is the question that Arjuna asks Krishna in the beginning of the third chapter. He says, if attachment is the source of our suffering, and you're telling me to do my duty, so which means, to remain in the world, to remain a grihasta, or a person who's married and who has a job, in Arjuna's case, as a kshatriya, or warrior, or a protectorate of society. You're telling me, on one hand, attachment is the cause of my suffering, but on the other hand, you're telling me to act, to do my duty. I don't understand what you're saying. Isn't it better that I reject action in the material world because it's going to cause attachments, and these attachments are the source of my suffering? So isn't it better to reject the world, renounce the world, leave my job, leave my family, go to the Himalayas, sit in a cave and meditate all day? Take a total life of renunciation. And Krishna says, no, to reject your dharma, your duty, is actually worse than performing your duty and killing thousands of warriors that you're going to face. He says, actually, the sin lies in the rejection of your duty. And why is it? Because the way the social structure of this world is set up and the way Krishna has designed the social structure and the spiritual structure, it's designed to lead us on our path, our honest path. We can't advance if we're not honest, and we take an artificial path. And what do I mean by artificial path? If you are not a renunciate, even you may wear the dress of a renunciate. And I hate to say this, but I've seen in the course of my 53 years as a practicing bhakti yogi and devotee of Krishna, I've seen in the course of my devotional history people who have taken the path of renunciation and they weren't renunciates. So does that help them? If we listen to Arjuna's argument, well, if I act, I'll become attached. And so should we listen to Arjuna? No, we shouldn't act and become attached. Or should we go deeper and understand actually what Krishna's meaning? And Krishna's meaning is that we have to know who we are. We have to know what our psychophysical makeup is. Because if we renounce falsely or deceptively, then we won't be able to maintain it. And even if you're able to put on the show of renunciation, which means the saffron robes and the lectures and all that stuff, you put on the show of renunciation, but you're harboring attachment to sense gratification, then you won't make tangible, realistic advancement on your path. You know the story of two Buddhist monks that were on pilgrimage, and they're on their pilgrimage, they're on their path, and they come to a river. So they're going to have to wade through the river. They're Buddhist monks, they're renunciates, and this young lady comes up next to them, and she says, "Oh, my dear, kind monks, I need to get across the river, but I can't do it myself. Can you help me? Can you carry me across the river?" So the one monk is like, "What, are you crazy? No, I'm a monk. Can't you see? I'm a monk. I don't deal with women. I don't touch women." But the other monk was more, down to earth. He says, "Sure, I'll help you, get on my back." So the lady gets on his back. They wade through the river. They come to the other side. The lady gets off the monk's back. She says, "Thank you, thank you." And then she goes her way. And the two monks proceed on their pilgrimage. So for a good amount of time, there's silence. They're not talking to each other. And then finally, the one who rejected the woman's petition for help, he stops and he says, "I can't believe you've done that." And the other monk who carried the woman across the river, he says, "I've done what? What did I do?" He says, "You're a renunciate. You're a monk. You're not supposed to have any interaction, no connection, no touch of a woman. And you just carried that woman across the river. She's holding on to you. That's not the action of a monk. And the other monk said to him, he said, I carried that woman across the river, but you've been carrying her across the river and all the while. So he's indicating to the other monk, what's in your mind? Detachment was in the mind of the genuinely advanced monk. He did his good deed and let it go at that. But the other one was so preoccupied. The other one, oh, you touched a woman. How could you touch a woman? I wish I had touched a woman. That kind of mindset. That's the kind of mindset when you are renounced, but artificially so. It happened with Saint Francis of Assisi also. Saint Francis of Assisi was a genuine renunciate. He didn't even wear shoes. He wore a brown robe and, ate very little and prayed a lot. And he gathered followers because whatever a great man does, common men will follow. So St. Francis was such a great symbol of renunciation and service to Jesus that he gathered followers. One day, he was on the road going through the village of Assisi, and he noticed one of his followers that stopped by a window, and he was longingly looking in the window. And when St. Francis looked into the window, it was a young lady. So they kept going. And when they got to where their ashram was, St. Francis says, you should go and marry. I saw the way you were looking at that woman and how it seemed like you had a strong desire to be with that woman or with a woman. And he said, so we're not meant to just give up things for the sake of giving them up, but we're actually meant to do our action or non-action in service to our advancement. And if it's not in service to our advancement, then what's the point? So if you're renouncing action, but you're clinging to desire for gratification, desire for the things that you're quote unquote renouncing, then what is the point? There's no point to that because you're harboring that desire. And within your heart, that desire will grow stronger and stronger and grow roots. And you'll never get rid of it. So action is there. Everyone has to be active. Even Krishna will describe in the upcoming verses how even he has to be active for the sake of humanity. So action has to be there. It becomes a point of not whether you act or renounce action, but what is best for you? What is going to facilitate your spiritual development? That's what is the point. That's what Krishna is making the point here. Do your duty like King Janaka, and by virtue of that, he became a liberated soul. So, text 20 we read. Does someone want to say something, or was that just an accident? Okay, we'll continue. I think I read 21 too. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow. And whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. One person, I'm not a politician. I don't like politics. But one person, a friend of mine, asked me, who are you going to vote for? And I said, well, I think most politicians are kind of self-interested and crooked, but at least I don't want my son to see a mode of behavior that is not acceptable present in the most powerful person in the world. So whether they're the best thing for the country or not is always going to be debatable. But if someone's acting in a particular way that is unacceptable behavior, arrogance, glorified arrogance and racism, and just spouting words that just increase our divisiveness, attack each other, conquer and divide, then how can we support somebody like that? Because Krishna says here, what great man does, come and men will follow. So if a so-called great man is acting in that way, the young people will see that, and that will become their role model, right? When you were growing up, didn't you, or your parents maybe, always talk to you about role models, or you may have had a role model, depending if you were an athlete, like my son's a soccer player. He loves soccer, and he always talks about the guy that he really idolizes, Cristiano Ronaldo. He always talks about Ronaldo. So how that person acts is going to have influence. And that's the responsibility. People want to be great. People want to be famous. But the responsibility of being in a famous position or being considered a great person, the responsibility is so great because millions of people are watching you, your every movement, and you are influencing them. And there's great karma, great reaction to how you act and how you influence people. So if we had the realization that if I idolize this person, but this person's actions will cause them untold amount of suffering, then that's not a good thing. So I think every person who becomes famous should take a course, Fame 101. What is the result of your fame? Besides no privacy, not being able to go anywhere without being, attacked, adored, people disturbing you, etc. But the responsible and the burden of people watching and listening to watching your every move and listening to your every word. Sometimes I listen to interviews of different people, and from all, they could be actors or rock stars or politicians or philosophers or wherever. And I always think to myself, how are they living their life? What gives them the authority to speak on this particular topic? So we should understand there should be, I think, a course on the reality of fame so that people understand that the weight of that responsibility of being seen as a great person in whatever field that you achieve that recognition. You should understand the level of responsibility that's there. Of course, whether you believe it or not is another thing, but to understand that is an important facet of our life. Let's go on with the chapter, text 22. O son of Pritha, there is no work prescribed for me, Krishna is saying this, within all the three planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything nor have I need to obtain anything, and yet I am engaged in prescribed duties. So Krishna is saying, hey, I'm God, and even I'm acting. And why am I acting? Because I have to serve as an example. I'm a great personality, and I have to, I have to be an example. So that's what Krishna is saying in this. I don't want anything. I don't need anything. I don't need to obtain anything, but yet I act in a particular way. When Krishna was present on the planet, and there was a sacrifice called the Rajasuya sacrifice, Krishna greeted the guests. Now here he is, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And how did he greet the guests? Did he say, worship me, bow down before me? No. When an elder came, he showed them the respect due to a senior. He bowed down to the elders. When a junior came, someone who was junior to him, then he showed them affection, kindness. And when someone who was considered, at least socially, on his equal age, equal stature, maybe another king or another, and Krishna would embrace them. So this is what Krishna is saying, that I'm acting accordingly, because they will look at me and they will say, oh, Krishna behaved like that, so I can behave like that. And Prabhupada even says that when Krishna danced with the gopis, some people, some rascal people will say, well, if Krishna can do it, I can do it also. So even Krishna's manifestation of the most intimate, loving exchange with his devotees, people try to duplicate that. But Krishna here is saying, I'm acting, I'm engaged in duties for the benefit, for the example to humanity. And here Krishna continues, text 23. For if I ever fail to engage in carefully performing prescribed duties, O Partha, certainly all men would follow my path, which means, as a great person does, common men will follow. So Krishna says, if I act in a particular way, people will follow that. So if I act in a way where a person thinks they can get more gratification out of their life, they'll use me as the excuse. So therefore, I should behave properly in an exemplary way, because example is a very powerful force. How one acts, the example of their actions, is very powerful. So Krishna is basically saying that the way I behave will influence humanity, and humanity will act. They will basically they'll follow my path. If I did not perform prescribed duties, all these worlds would be put to ruination. I would be the cause of creating unwanted population, and I would thereby destroy the peace of all living beings. So again, Krishna's getting even deeper into it. Yeah, look what will happen. There will be no proper activity. If Krishna is doing like that, and I'll follow that. So there won't be any proper action, And Krishna says one of the biggest disturbances in society is unwanted children that won't have a father, children that just happened without planning, just happened. And, then the father says, well, I really wasn't into this, I wasn't into taking responsibility for a child. But that creates a lot of stress on the mother. The mother is now alone and very difficult position to raise a child. So this unwanted children, fortunately, in this age, mothers in particular, they have a strong desire and connection to their child. And it doesn't matter if they're put into a difficult situation, they take on that responsibility single-handedly. And I've seen a lot of situations where a single mother is doing an amazing job. There is a devotee family in Alachua for many, many, many years. Her name is Ekadasi, I believe her name is. And she had 5 children, and her husband abandoned her when the children were very young. And she never remarried, and she just dedicated her life to growing, to teaching her children properly. And all of those children, all 5, I know intimately, I know the 2 twins who are, great kirtaniyas, Kishore Gopal and his brother. And all the children are actually wonderful children. 5 children by herself for years and years. So Krishna says, that's difficult. And in many cases, people aren't up to doing it, but they do it. Text 25. As the ignorant perform their duties with attachment to results, as the ignorant perform their duties with attachment to results, the learned may similarly act, but without attachment, for the sake of leading people on the right path. So here, Krishna is saying, you make a choice. Ignorance means you don't act properly. You don't really care what kind of, example or non-example you are. You just act for your own gratification. Whereas a wise person, an intelligent person, acts properly in accordance with Dharma. And that sets a great example for the world. Text 26. So as not to disrupt the minds of ignorant men attached to the fruitive results of prescribed duties, a learned person should not induce them to stop work. So here Krishna is saying, further answer to the question of renunciation, here Krishna is saying, do not encourage a person who is not wise to renounce. They'll just become a thorn on society. They'll just become beggars. And that's not the position of a renunciate, just to be a beggar. So Krishna is saying here, no, we should not encourage them to give up their duty. They should work responsibly. And this is one of my favorite verses. There are, of course, many verses in the Bhagavad Gita. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha ahankara vimudhatma kartaham iti manyate. The spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the 3 modes of material nature. So very simply, Krishna is talking about soul in the body. The soul is not the body. The body is yantra rudhani mayaya. The body is a machine made of material energy. The soul in that machine motivates or activates the machine. False ego means when the soul unites with that body and thinks it is that body and that mind, that's called false ego or misidentification. And that misidentification is the cause of our bewilderment. We're thinking we're something that we're not. And Prabhupada uses the many, many different examples. We're not the body. If we think we're the body, we're like fish that is out of water, out of its element. What happens when a fish is on land? Suffers like anything, right? You see them wriggling around and gasping for breath and suffering. So Prabhupada likens that onto the soul that thinks it's its body. It's not its environment. It's not its natural environment. And what the body experiences in the form of, the different miseries which come from the body itself, the mind itself, other living entities like mosquitoes biting us, and the natural forces out there, that when we get hit by all those things, and we think they're the body, we're the body, and the body's being affected by those things, then our attachment causes us to suffer. Like you just got a new car, right? And this is me. Got a new car around the end of 24. I think it was November or December. Got a Chrysler Pacifica minivan. And it's really, really nice van. I think 3 months after I got it, I come out, I'm bringing the garbage out, and I see on the side door, the side doors open automatically. And I see on the side door about a 6-inch scratch on it. And that's all I can see. I can't see the rest of the van. I can only see the scratch. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, here's this beautiful van. It's white and has the black rims. It's an S model, which is it's a hybrid, and it's really nice looking. And I'm so attached to seeing it in this particular way, in this flawless way. And I get up every morning and I'm looking at that scratch, and I'm thinking to myself, oh no, I can't live with this. And then my wife goes on a work trip. She goes away, and someone gave me a donation, and I take the donation and I have this guy who does auto repair work for a very good price. I go to him and I'm like, can you fix this scratch for a reasonable amount of money? And he looks at it and he says, yeah, I have to paint the whole door. So he said, yeah, but I'll give you a good price. So he gave me a great price, absolutely fabulous price. And I had it done. And, it was a couple $100. Other people were quoting me 700, 1,000. It said he charges me and the scratch is gone. And my wife comes back from the trip, and she, observant as she is, she says, what happened to the scratch? And I said, yeah, I couldn't resist. I had to get rid of the scratch. I'm so attached to the car. All I saw was the scratch. So that's when we are deluded into thinking that we are the body, and the end result of thinking that we are the body is our attachment, and that's the cause of our suffering. So Krishna is saying, understand that action is the result of the modes of material nature, and we, the soul, are the witness to this. We are capable of witnessing this. So I'll read the other couple of verses and we'll stop. One who is in knowledge of the absolute truth, O mighty armed, does not engage himself in the senses and sense gratification, knowing well the differences between work and devotion and work for fruitive results. Text 29. Bewildered by the modes of material nature, the ignorant fully engage themselves in material activities and become attached. But the wise should not unsettle them, although these duties are inferior due to the performer's lack of knowledge. And the last one that we'll read for the evening. Therefore, O Arjuna, surrendering all your works unto me, with full knowledge of me, without desires for profit, with no claims to proprietorship, and free from lethargy, fight. So Krishna is saying, that's the way you act in this material world. And that action, jagnarta karmano nyatra, because your actions are in relationship with me, there's no reaction, and you will come to me. So Krishna kind of sums up all that we went over. So we'll continue next week with 31, and I'll open up the floor if anyone has any question or comment or realization or observation. Please feel free to hit your unmute button.
Lakshmi, can you hear?
I have a comment and a realization, if you don't mind.
I don't mind, and then we'll go to Mukti. Please go ahead, Jai Krishna.
Okay, yeah, I'll be brief. Um, Today I was entering a comparative religion class that I belong to and I speak at here in the Dominican. And as I was walking into the class, I received on my news feed that picture you were talking about, Phil Collins and Paul McCartney. So I happened to see it today. And in the class, I presented it to the class, and to just what you said, I asked the class, I said, you know, here's Phil Collins, here's Paul McCartney, you know, the president of Dominican Republic, you know, the Pope in Rome, you and me. What do we all have in common? You know, just, you know, because I don't get into heavy spiritual religion things, and it just develops with conversation. And, you know, I get, you know, all these things. I said, look, we got 24 hours in a day. And that's it. Now, here's two very wealthy human beings, and they're at the fag end of their lives, just like we all are. I said, it doesn't matter. They can't buy 1 second, 1 minute, 1 hour more in this day or in his life. And you know, it just popped in my mind today when you were talking about that. And I said, wow, you know, it's so true. And I really believe that your class study was very personal to a lot of people because it was very direct and kind and nice. So you made a lot of good points. And just one other thing I just want to say is a comment. You know, many years ago in my business, the Aventura Mall was one of my clients. And Michael Jackson was alive at the time, and he was playing at the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens. And I was invited there by the manager. He said, "Look, I mean, you can come along as part of our entourage, but you know, you can't talk to him, you can't, you know, do anything, but we can all follow him, and you can see Michael Jackson." Well, why not? I mean, I had to do it no matter what. So as I was walking through the mall with them, the entire Aventura Mall, I think most of you know the Aventura Mall, was closed to the public. Nobody could come into the Aventura Mall. And Michael Jackson wanted to shop and buy, and I'm, you know, everybody's like ooh and on. And I'm thinking, this poor guy cannot go get an ice cream. You know, he cannot be just a normal human being. And I just thought about that today when you were talking about, you know, wealthy people and, you know, there comes with responsibilities. But, you know, if that means wealth, then who the hell wants it? You
Right.
know, it's just not worth anything to me if that's how I have to live. That's my comment.
Yeah, I thank you for that. Thank you so much, Jai Krishna, for that. Yeah, one of the things I often quoted is a Madonna quote where she said, "Fame, it ain't cracked up what it's supposed to be." So here's someone who, you know, who's had massive amounts of fame, and like you said, you know, they can't even go shopping, and if they do go out by themselves, they have to go, you know, dressed up. And Madonna was always wearing a baseball cap and a hoodie, and so you couldn't really see her because they're always approached by, you know, so many people. They don't have that. So fame and wealth, strength, beauty, all of these things, the realization we should have, they're all temporary. And whether we have them or not, you know, what is the difference? If we have them, well, you know, that's the result of your past pious activities. And if we don't have them, so it may be the result of your past impious activities. In either case, it's the interaction that we have in this world, in either case, whether we have pious activities or impious activities. We're here again. And you know, one may say, well, you know, I can continue performing pious activities and I can continue getting this good lifestyle. But the risk of coming back is that you'll fall into the wrong association and you won't do that. You'll perform impious activities, have a lifetime of impiety, and then have the next lifetime, you won't have the wealth and the fame and all that, and how much you will miss it because you've already experienced it. So, this kind of realization comes to people who are trying. There's an awareness of their awareness. We have to become aware of the fact that we are not the mind and body, because that's what's creating thought, the interaction of the senses with the sense objects, and then those responses, what we hear, what we see, etc., goes into the mind, and that creates thought. We're not that. We're the observer. We're sitting in the body, and the body's doing its thing. What we have, the senses and the ability to perceive what those senses are bringing in the form of sight, smell, sound, taste, and touch. And that's what's creating the thought process. But really, that's not us. That's just the interaction of the senses with the sense objects. We are the observers. We are the moviegoers. We're sitting in the movie, and the movie's playing before us. And if it's a good movie, we're really into it. If it's a good comedy, we're laughing. If it's a thriller, we're on the seats, the edge of our seats. If it's a horror movie, we're horrified. We're into it. But actually, we're not part of it. So we are the moviegoers. We're in the body. We're watching the movie, and we're getting into the movie. We're saying, yeah, that's so funny. Oh, that's so sad. But we're really the observers of all these things. And that's why Krishna said that it's really not you, the false ego thinking it's you, but it's really the influence of the modes of material nature upon our mentality. Anyone else have something they would like to share with us?
Lakshmi, thank you again for this wonderful tapasya. But I'm seeing here on text 23 and 24, the Krishna is saying, if I did not engage in work, and also he's saying if I should cease to work. I'm just wondering, what work was he referring to? What work was he doing then? Or what was he relating to Arjuna?
Well, creation, it's one thing he does, but also his immediate, he's playing the role of a Kshatriya prince, right? He's playing that role. That's not really him. He's not a Kshatriya prince. He's a lover. He's a cowherd boy. But he's playing. He's there in Dwarka, and he has an immense army. So he's a commander in chief. So he's playing all these different roles. He's married to 16,108 wives. So he's a husband on steroids, a hyper husband. He's got all these wives and all of these children, but he's not really a husband. So he's while he's playing these roles, he that's what he's saying. I'm doing it, and I'm acting in a particular way for exemplary purposes. So I think that's what he's referring to.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
More like his immediate role at that point. You're welcome. Great question. Great observation. Anyone else have anything to say? Any realizations?
Hello, here.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Haribo.
Haribo. So I missed a point about Patanjali you were mentioning early. What was his teachings? What was the what he wanted to show by showing his sutras?
Yeah, basically Patanjali's destination is self-discovery. right? When you read Patanjali, you don't see anywhere where he's saying worship God and this is God. You don't see anywhere where he even mentions Brahman. All he mentions, his object is self-discovery. Doesn't go beyond that. So the Yoga Sutras, he does mention as part of Kriya Yoga in the second chapter, he does mention Ishvara Pranidhan. And Ishvara Pranidhan means, the worship of Ishvara. But that is in relationship to object of meditation. What do you meditate on? And he gives a whole list of things that you can meditate on. And one of the primary things that he gives as an object of your meditation for your advancement is the Supreme Controller. So, but Patanjali, if you read the whole of Yoga Sutras, you will not see him say, worship God, this is God, this is what God looks like. It doesn't come close to that. The whole object is intro within. Go within and see the self in a nutshell. That's Patanjali. And even in Patanjali, you don't really see Paramatma mentioned. It seems like that is the realization of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, our lineage, our acharyas talk about Paramatma realization. I think even within the sutras, you don't really see Patanjali emphasizing Paramatma. You see his emphasis is on self-discovery, the realization of the true nature of the self. That's Patanjali's focus point. Okay. Trish, you have something? You're welcome. Thank you, Premarnava. Always nice to have your association. I miss doing kirtan with you and your mridanga playing. Hopefully, Krishna will give me an opportunity to come back to the Bhakti Barn and we could play it together again.
Yeah, you have to come over sometime.
Definitely. My son now is my sidekick. He's been trained in mridanga and harmonium, so he's kind of my sidekick right now. Trish, you have something you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, from Patanjali, when you're in your self-discovery and you're not using a particular name, or by not using the name of God, it becomes boundless because you're not limiting it to one personality.
Well, I mean, that's the understanding, but according to Krishna in the Gita and more specifically in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the thing that both the Jnani yogis and the yogis, the classic yogis out of the Patanjali lineage, is that they're not taking into consideration that just because Krishna has form, he's not limited. It's not a limited form like you or me. That his form is unlimited, it's unbounded, and we are able to take part in that by our connection with Krishna. Not that we become that, but we actually enter into a relationship with that boundless, limitless. And what is the limitlessness of Krishna? It's love. The limitlessness of Krishna is love. There is no limit to the love that he exchanges with us. And that in and of itself is amazing because, when we experience a loving relationship, whether it be with our child, whether it be with our partner, whether it be with our parents, when we have those moments of love exchange, they're wonderful, right? They're like what makes our life memorable, is it not? And people who are horribly depressed, it's because they don't have those memories or they're not capable of appreciating those memories. But when we realize that Krishna Bhagavan feature of the unlimited reality, that limitlessness is not just, it is in his loving capability that he can share with you. So that means anything, any love that you've experienced in this mortal world, you multiply that by an infinite amount. And that's the nature of your loving relationship with Krishna. And that's what you have to look forward to. And that's pretty amazing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So thank you, folks. Thank you for joining me this evening and giving me the benefit of your association, because as you probably noticed, me being in your association is tremendously encouraging, enthusing, and empowering. And I appreciate the moments that we spend together, and I look forward to our next class on Tuesday. If you are local, if you live in the area, on the 23rd of August, we're having our love feast here at Mikasa Sukasa. So we're having a nice love feast here. Plenty of kirtan, plenty of prasadam, and I'll speak a little bit on some topic or another. So that's, mark it on your calendar, August 23rd, 5 p.m. here at our house. So have a great week. Have a happy, holy, and healthy week. And we'll see you next Tuesday. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Lakshmi.
Haribo, Haribo. Here's the birthday boy. Please shower
Happy
your blessings.
birthday.
Today he's 11. He just had a
Oh.
bunch of his friends over today, and they were
Happy
partying all day.
Thank you.
So tall
11.
now. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, 11 years old now. Haribo.
I-
Haribo.